Hello and welcome back to the channel. Thank you for joining me on another of my wonderful interviews. Now, you may remember some time ago, if you've been a long-term viewer of my shows, that I had a very interesting gentleman who is all into numbers, synchronicity, and the meaning of them. Well, I asked him if he'd come back on the show because we're in another year. We were in 2023, and those numbers were significant then. But seems to me, and a lot of people are telling me, that 2024 is even more significant. So I want to find out if there are any predictions or things that we should be looking out for or be wary of or that kind of thing on a number basis. So Tom Numbers, who has his own podcast and he is a budding author, he is writing a book which we'll find out more about, joins me now. Hello, Tom.
Hey Richard, great to be back with you. How are you?
Yeah, no, I'm very well. Beginning of a very what seems to be turbulent year. And it's predicted to be more turbulent as we get into it. We've already had silly rumours about people being conscripted, and apparently there are volcanoes going on in China and things like that. It sounds like we're in for a rocky ride this year.
Yeah.
2023, I mentioned 2023. We'll get into the sort of number things, but what for you was 2023 worth remembering about it within the numbers and synchronicity that you work with?
So I think a major thing came to me in 2023 in regards to the numbers, which was pointing and looking at a time and place in 2024. And I mentioned this to you before, I think we did it on the other show, but there's more that's come since then, and it goes down to this date of November 5th this year, 2024, and I think it's the date that I think personally I feel through the numbers and my intuition and my synchronicities, I feel that it's the date that we can look forward to and celebrate in many ways. I don't know exactly how it's all going to transpire, but I think it's something massive. I think it's something huge.
I remember November the 5th being a number that we were a bit wary of last year. Yeah, and it was interesting that was when Parliament was prorogued in between Halloween, which is a fearful number, and then November the 5th, the blowing up of Parliament number.
Yes.
And it was when nothing was happening. And I wondered at the time whether there was a reason for these two specific dates and the potential for the other side, let's say, of being damaging to them, so they didn't want to be around.
That's a good point. Maybe they didn't want it to kind of get out of the way. I think a lot of this, I mean, particularly since 2020 came in, and we've had all of this. We're now in 2024. It's amazing to say that it's been 4 years almost now, and it will be over 4 years by the time we get to that election later in the year. Whether that will be an actual election, whether it will be something, whatever it will be, I think that's been a marker in time, particularly for you and me as two English guys. We've been brought up in our psychology in the group malaise of conscious think. Remember the 5th of November.
Yeah.
There's a reason for that. And I feel, so there was something historically many centuries ago that didn't take place. It was stopped. Everyone knows what that was. I feel that date has been chosen for something majestic in terms of changing it and getting the outcome that the people have wanted for not just these last few years, but for decades, centuries, and maybe even millennia.
Wow.
And I think that's why we've been told to remember it. And the numbers correlate. And interesting, I don't know if I mentioned this to you before in the other show, but so in 2023, Twitter, which both you and me are on, changed its name, and that was a big public thing. Everybody knows that took place. And so when you do the numbers, when I talk about the numbers, I'm talking about the order of the alphabet and with its corresponding numerical value. So for example, A is the first letter, so it equals 1.
Yeah.
B is the second letter, so therefore equals 2. C's 3, D's 4, all the way through to the 26th letter, which is the last one, which is Z or Z if you're American.
Yeah.
So when you spell the word Twitter, it comes to 11.5, 115. Now, you can look at that as a date.
And you're adding them up. You're just to show how that works.
That's
So
it.
you're
Yeah.
taking each letter.
That's it. Yeah. So T is the 20th letter, so it equals 20. W is the 23rd letter, so it equals 23. I is 9. T is 20. T is 20. E is 5, and R is 18. So you add them all up together. So T, W, I, T, T, E, R, or 20 plus 23 plus 9 plus 20 plus 20 plus 5 plus 18. And them all together comes to 115 in numbers. So the word Twitter in the simple numbers, the simple Gematria numbers, equals 115. And 115, you look at it, that's one way to look at a date, 11/5, which is November 5th.
Right.
And then they changed it to X. Now, X is the 24th letter. And what year are we in?
24.
We're in 24. So it's very interesting. And it's like X marks the spot. So
Right.
they went from 11/5 and they changed it to X. I mean, still people, I still call it Twitter, but it's X. And it's like 11/5 X. 11/5, November 5th, 2024, X marks the spot. So it's there, you know. And even in Back to the Future, the film Back to the Future, Marty, to just put people back in the picture of it. So at the beginning of the film, they're October 26th, but they fast forward, well, actually back in time, he jumps to November 5th. So he jumps to November 5th. Then he's a week in the past in 1955, and he comes back on November 12th, and then he goes back to October 26th, and that whole time jump is done. But the interesting thing about that is when Marty and Doc Emmett Brown 148, Donald J. Trump 148, The Art of the Deal 148, Emmett Brown, Time Traveler 148, Simple Gematria 148. So The Art of the Deal comes from 148. So all these things have been set up. Trump 88, you have to travel 88 miles per hour. Back to the Future to time travel. Time travel is 125. John Kennedy, Dark to Light 125. But you'll notice, I did a piece on this a couple of years ago, but as Marty McFly, Marty 77, Christ, power 77 hertz, manifest, vibrate, sorry, matter, not manifest, matter. As he's going back, as he's about to start the car up, and the lightning bolt has to hit, and then have to go 88 miles per hour to transform back into the previous timeline. There's in the foreground, or just in the slight background, there's a hotel. It's actually a motel, and it's called the Bluebird Motel. And guess what? Guess what piece of animation, like an actual symbol for that Bluebird Motel is? It's the blue Twitter bird.
Ah.
Yeah, it's right there. It's right there. It's right there, Richard. It's the Twitter symbol. It's the Bluebird Motel. And if you do the numbers on Bluebird Motel, it comes to 138. And 138 comes to Donald Trump, 138. Revaluation, 138. The gold reset, 138. It also comes to I am Twitter, 138. Also comes to I am 11/5, if you break it down that way. But it also comes to Elon Musk Bank. And Elon Musk was the one that bought it supposedly for $144 billion.
Oh my goodness.
And it's right there on the tin.
And it's right there.
And people say, oh, you can make anything with numbers. Well, you can't make up a bluebird. You can't make up the symbol of the bluebird because it's right there. They call it Bluebird Motel. Not hotel, but motel.
Motel.
Because
if they'd used an H, it would have been a different number.
Exactly. But they chose Bluebird Motel, and it's got the beautiful symbol of the blue Twitter bird right there. So it's to do with Twitter. It's to do with Elon Musk. And they changed from Twitter 11/5, changed it to X. 11/5, X marks the spot. You know. Yeah. So, and there's loads of others. Like there's many others that come up with it. You know. Even here, if you do this, if you do Trump, or the Trump, if you just do Art of the Deal, the Trump. If you do Trump the Art of the Deal, if you do Trump the or the Trump, that's 121, which is Golden Jubilee. which is actually 11 times 11. And November 5th is maybe the week to remember, or the beginning of it, remember. But there's two things, remember. So if you go from November 5th on to a week later, that's 11/11. That's Armistice Day. So they're both things. It's remember, the 5th of November. Where does the second remember come up? Oh, Armistice Day, 11/11. But if you just do this, if you do Trump, if you do Art of the Deal, that's 115 in numbers, which is Twitter, which is 11/5 again. So everything is all connected. It's all, you know, it's all there. Another one that keeps coming up, you might have noticed this. I know your busy schedule, but I did a show a couple of days ago with Rob Cunningham and Dr. Jan Halper Hayes, and I mentioned 310 to Yuma. So there's an old film back in the day. There's actually two films, but Yuma is a place on the border wall, and President Trump has been going down to the border wall quite a few times when he was president. He was actually supposed to go there apparently today, but he had to change his plans because of all these indictments and court cases and stuff. But I mentioned that on the show just a few days ago, and 310 to Yuma. I was like, that's a weird thing. Why 310? Why not anything else? Guess what day of the year November 5th falls on this year, Richard?
I have no idea.
It's the 310th day of the year.
Oh, is it? Oh, I see what you mean, yes.
Yeah, it's the 310th day of the year.
310th day of the year. So, I mean, you know, this isn't, I mean, because people will watch this and go, well, this must be just coincidence, or you connived it very carefully to make these claims work. I mean, if you unpack it the other way, though, it must take quite a brain to say we're going to put the bluebird of Twitter on a motel in a film, 30 years before an event is going to take place, and we know it's going to be the 5th of November. I mean, you know, that is very bizarre, isn't it?
It's very bizarre, Richard. And you've just unpacked it. People say about coincidence, it's like, well, maybe coincidence isn't a bad thing. And it's like conspiracy theory. Maybe conspiracy theory is not a bad thing. So the popular consensus of coincidence and the popular consensus of conspiracy theory, they've all, but you know, they've been basically kind of told it's the exact opposite of what they are. Maybe conspiracy theories are what they are, and maybe coincidence is God talking and divine intervention, you know. And it is bizarre, like you say, you unpack it the other way. If you look the other way, which I think more people are doing now, because they're like, well, hang on, all this is going on, all this nonsense. So what's the alternative? Look in the other direction. And it is very bizarre for 30 years ago for a film to have Twitter. Twitter didn't even exist then.
No, that's right. I mean, this is one of the things that, you know, I have to sort of remind myself is things like Twitter and mobile phones and the internet is a really recent thing.
Massive. It is a recent, exactly. It's a recent thing. It didn't exist prior. You know, we grew up before the internet and mobile phones and even before Back to the Future was, you know, delivered to us. But nevertheless, you trace it back, you trace the steps back, and it's like, oh wow, you know, it's there.
Yeah, and they've been planting their seeds ever since.
Yeah, both sides have been doing this. Both sides have been doing things. And the other thing is, people say, I'm a natural. So the other thing, positive. The word positive is 115, which is 11/5.
Right. So potentially a positive thing could happen on November the 5th this year. Yeah.
And if you're like a pure balance in everything, so negative and positive, you need that for balance it with atoms, etc. There's even a reference to Atomic Boy with Back to the Future when he does that run and goes back into the time. But the word negative is 83, which is election.
So 83 is the same numbers of letters or adds up as in the word election.
Yeah, and election's on 11/5. But guess what? When you add them together, when you add election on 11/5, so if you do negative plus positive, it comes to 198, which comes to the resurrection, and it comes to President Trump, and it comes to calm before the storm. And there's a storm in Back to the Future. It's like, what's going on? There's something a lot more than just You
Yes.
know, I didn't put these things together, or maybe I did. Maybe I helped in a previous timeline or future timeline, and maybe that's why it comes to me. But in terms of just me, Tom, here right now, I'm not the one plotting all this stuff. I
No.
see it, I
D-
observe
uh,
it. It comes and something tells me, look at this, and I'm like, oh wow, and it never takes long. It's like it's instant, and that's the
Well,
only
you
thing.
know, I remember being incredibly impressed by the very fact that you'd learned the alphabet with the numbers, so that you can just,
Yeah,
and as I think you said, after about 3 weeks, it's just like learning different words, isn't it? You've got
yeah,
it.
yeah. That's it. It's like a codex to another language. It's
Yeah.
like okay, it took, and it did. So all the information, the synchronicities were coming, but I still had to do the physical work of. I was counting it out on my fingers and writing it
Yeah.
down and jotting it down, and it was like this avalanche of information. But then I was like, right, I've got to be able to be fluent. A is one, B is two, and it took me about 10 days to 3 weeks to be able to do it. And that sped things up drastically. And so if anyone wants to get really good at this, if you can do A is one, B is two, Z is 26, P is 16, if you can do it like that,
Yeah.
then bonjour, s'il vous plaît, merci. It's like you're speaking
Yep.
French numbers. It's brilliant. That's what you can do.
And I mean, presumably there's not many people like you out there, but there must be others.
I think there are others, yes. So I very humbly and accurately, I feel, put on my Twitter, I said the world's #1 in simple gematria. But because the number of characters you can put in there, I've said it on a video, but the caveat, I would say, non-military. So I believe there are people behind the scenes that are in this, that know more actually have meeting planning and are involved directly with this whole cleanup operation. I'm a civilian. I'm not military. Military is 107, which is quantum. So maybe I am at some level. But right now, me as Tom, me being me, I'm a non-military person. But I was given, somehow I was picked and given this gift of the numbers, and I fully accept it. But in answer to your question, there are other people, like President Trump is one. There are others that I talk to, and I'm like, you know the numbers. And I know they know the numbers, and they're smiling back and they're sending stuff to me, but definitely President Trump, and even people behind the scenes that I talk about Princess Diana, I fully feel that she'll come back. It was kind of her essence, her energy that was teaching me this, along with President Trump and the Kennedys, and I connected the dots with the Q, etc. All of this in the early hours and minutes, well, days and weeks of lockdown.
Yes.
And it all came then. So yeah, in answer to your question, there are others that know it. But in terms of a civilian, me doing what, there are others that I know and interact with, and they're getting good at the numbers as well. But I think there are others that do know it, and have probably been doing it for a long, long time. So I say it with great humility on my Twitter, but I can't put the extra bit of like non-military, because I think there are some military personnel behind the scenes that do know it. In fact, I know they know it. I know that
Right.
yeah.
And I mean, one of the things that I've observed from our last conversation, and you do this automatically, and I just have to maybe remind the viewer, is that you've obviously taken a whole load of words, and you've got these words in your head, like revelation or whatever, or
Revelation 121. We just spoke about that one,
and so that you already know those numbers, so that when you add something up, you're correlating it with this library of words whose numbers correspond. So what's the relationship then if you have a word like we did with 115? And you've got this sort of mental library of other 115 words.
Yes.
Is there something about those words that all join together?
Yes. So this is the beauty of simple gematria, which is what it's called, or simple English gematria. Its full title is. So I have a kind of particular bandwidth of information and of consciousness and synchronicities and things that I am working towards, but I'm open to, I'm receptive to.
Right.
So, there's probably, 30,000+ words in the English alphabet. I don't know the gematria for all of them, but I know a nice proportion, but then I can very quickly work out what any number is. And so I always discover new ones as I go along. But like you said, I've got this kind of black book of this thesaurus of numbers that I've got. But
So
they
you can
are very
compare them.
similarly correlated, yes. And
Are
so
they?
because I'm weaving, I guess, I see a certain bandwidth of truth, of knowledge coming to pass, and as time goes on, it just gets confirmed more and more, and then I add to it as I go along. But I don't dwell on negative things. There's that. I'm aware of some of them, but I'm naturally positive 115. But I could if I just wanted to say, for example, someone's a botanist, they're a gardener,
Yeah.
and they're not interested in the Great Awakening or Trump, but they're just interested in grasses, ferns, flowers, vegetables. They could do their own gematria on that, and they'd have a whole wonderful thing, and they'll get plenty of correlation. Because the beauty of it is it all correlates. If you add up all the letters and numbers together, it comes to 351. So A is 1, B is 2, C is 3. 351 comes to God communicates through numbers, and he does, or she does, or it does. It communicates to all of us individually in our
God
own
communicates
life.
in numbers.
Yeah, God communicates through numbers, comes
Through
to
numbers.
351, which is A plus B plus C plus all the way through to Z.
Yeah. And if you just taking that botanist, that gardener, for example, is he able then to use the numbers to guide him to grow better things at different times, say taking dates in the year and going, oh, actually, if I plant this today or on the 3rd of February or whenever, for a cucumber, let's say, that the correlation will work better? Is that a sort of...
Yeah, so I'm not a botanist, so I don't have experience in that field. But all the things that I have interest in, the correlation. So I have this Great Awakening interest, but then in terms of sports, and then films and science and general knowledge and popular culture, they're always weaving in. And I'm like, I get correlations, dozens, hundreds of times a day. It's like, and so if anyone picks it up seriously, but I say serious, also have fun with it. There's no hard and fast rule. You just have fun with it. Then I would be, I would say, because 351, God communicates through numbers, the English alphabet, people in botany would get their own correlations and own their own pointers. And the thing is, as well, what happens is consciousness, the higher consciousness, everything has a consciousness. So the skills of gardening and botany, that has their own consciousness. It's all connected, but they're over in that part of the field, and they would get extra nuggets of value and synchronicities and timing and information in their field. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. So just going on, say, popular culture and things. So if you were thinking of going to the theatre or to go and see a gig or something somewhere, and there were 3 or 4 days, would you go, oh, name of band, date of thing, that's the best day to go because they're likely to give me the best performance? They won't be tired, or they won't have...
So I do. I mean, I don't get too kind of obsessed with it from that point of view, but but if there is a choice and it's an important choice to me, then I'll be like, oh well, actually I'll go for that because that feels more resonance with that. And I know people kind of do those things. They particularly the bad side in the past have done that. They're like, you've got to line all the numbers up. I don't get cut up about lining them up. I let the consciousness come in, and I get these thoughts. I'm giving them, or they come in. I'm like, and then I do. Oh, it correlates with that, and I see the bigger picture very quickly. And that's how I do, and I never really get cut up. I put it this way: I don't go around looking for numbers for hours on end.
No,
just the first thing that comes in, and I'm like, it's that. Okay, got it. And off I go because it served me well.
It's not like a superstition thing where you'd go, oh, that house is number 13. I'm not going in there.
No. But the interesting thing about it is when people are free and are good-hearted and just want to know more, quite often they will get correlation on that quite easily. So I've had that with a number of addresses that I've been in, and I've looked at, I'm like, okay, I can see what that was now, And so if the numbers come up and they present themselves, then by all means, if you get, because numbers are God winks, they are synchronicities, they are nudges from the greater good, from the greater beings. And so therefore, I would say to people, embrace them, play with them, and if you don't, if it's a choice of, 1 to 100. And then the number 88 comes up, I'd be like, well, actually, I'll probably go for 88. Yeah, it's like, if that's an option, I'll go for that. So it's like, but I never get really kind of dogmatic and just imprisoned by it. It's the higher levels of consciousness, the great awakening, the direction that we're going in, Richard, the movement that you're now a wonderful member of. You're feeling this. You feel this wind of excitement, of energy, of life, of betterment, of biggerness. It's that feeling, and the numbers come along just nicely with it. They just dovetail, and it's like, even if you don't pick a certain number, it doesn't mean it's over. It's like, because it's like the waves of the sea. They're constantly coming in. They're constantly coming in, and it's like, okay, I want to surf today, or I want to go fishing, or I want to get some water. It's always there, and you just tap into it, you know. And so the numbers are friends. The numbers are divine guidance, and they're gentle and they're fun, and they're brilliant. They've definitely enhanced my life. And anybody that picks it up seriously, I say seriously, anyone that's aware of it and uses it, it adds to your life, you know.
What about things like birth dates? With, you know, whatever your date of birth is, and you add it all up in the letters of the alphabet and the year. Can you use those numbers to enhance yourself or know more about yourself, or is there synchronicity? I can't say it now.
Synchronicities, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
With those numbers, and you go, I'm more in harmony with similar things. Is that a thing?
Yes, there's that for sure. And so Gematria is part of numerology. So numerology is looking at more things like dates and they reduce the numbers down. So, you know, it's like they'll add them up and then they reduce it down to a single digit, you know, usually between 1 and 9. And so that's definitely a way that people can do things. The way I do it with simple Gematria is I keep it open most of the time. And I find that it gives you more depth, it gives you more colors in your paint palette. So if you're an artist and you've only got 9 colors to paint from, you're still going to have a really pretty picture. But if you've got, you know,
if you've got all the colors, Pantone 303 and all of that.
303, that's a great one. That's Ivanka Trump's birthday on the 3rd. Yeah. And I got activated I met her, and the numbers started coming to me when I met her. So, you know, so it's interesting.
Oh, were they?
Of all the numbers in all the
numbers I could have said
303.
Yeah.
The 303rd day of the year. Yeah.
I mean, one number that we often see coming up if you can't get on a website or something goes wrong is 404. Yeah.
And do you know who those are? They're my grandparents. For me personally, they're my grandparents. Right. Because it's Eileen Adelaide Mary Wood, 205, and then it's Sydney Charles Wood, 199. So I just see that. So it's a nice reminder for me. But the thing is, when people do their own numbers and they've got you'll have your own relevance for 404, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
It's interesting stuff. So going through the rest of the year then, are there any events or numbers that have sort of given you hints on, you know, maybe difficult months ahead or things to look out for, other than the November the 5th?
Yeah, there's a few. I mean, to be fair, November the 5th is the one that kind of permeates everything. And so I'm just really looking at that. I mean, I've had all through this journey, I've had dates, and I've gone through a number of calendars, you know, so the numbers are coming back round. And I'm like, well, okay, it wasn't then. But I mean, there are others that come up. I mean, so traditionally there are important ones. So July 4th is a big one. But July 3rd actually is probably the bigger one for this year. So President Trump in 2020, he gave a great speech from Mount Rushmore. And Mount Rushmore, if no one's ever been there, I'd say it's a really special place. I was moved when I went there in 2020. 2022, I went there a couple of times. And it's a beautiful place. It's as amazing as I could have possibly thought, and probably then some. But he gave a great address at the foot of Mount Rushmore. And it was on July 3rd. And the reason it was on July 3rd, this is the beauty of the numbers, Richard. So July 4th is a big date in American history. He then went with Melania the following day back to Washington and then gave another speech on July 4th, because that was the 4th of July. But the reason he chose July 3rd, it was on a leap year in 2020. And that's the other important thing, is leap year is a big thing for changes. So we had the big one in 2020. That's why I think there's going to be something bigger, 10x at least, in 2024. Don't know exactly how it will come, but it's coming.
Right.
July 3rd was the 185th day of the year. ordinarily July 4th would be the 185th day of the year.
Oh, I see, yes.
Now, 185 in numbers is Donald John Trump. It's the Silver Reset. It's Book of Revelation. You already mentioned Revelation.
I did, yeah.
But he chose that date because it's on the 185th day of the year, which was July 3rd. And that's when he gave the real powerful speech. He talked about Martin Luther King, about promissory notes, about things. He was alluding to, a revaluation of some description. Another one that will come up is, you've got August 29th in the Terminator films, Judgment Day, but that also correlates to August 31st when Diana passed. You've got one past November, which is November 22nd for JFK. You've got JFK Jr. with July 16th. This is an interesting one, okay? So, do you have an iPhone, Richard, or an Android?
I have an Android.
Okay, so the date will be different for you. But on iPhone, there's a date that they show. So if you go to like the calendar emoji, it's July 17th, which is the day after JFK Jr. supposedly passed in 1999. But if you do the full numbers on July 17th, it comes to 205. And 205, I mentioned already the Batman film. So on the 205 in numbers is Madison Square Garden, which is literally a stone's throw away from the New Yorker Hotel. I've stayed there. That's where Nikola Tesla lived for a good part of his life. Madison Square Garden is in the most recent Batman film. I don't know if you saw the Batman film.
I've avoided a lot of these.
Okay, you've avoided it. But it takes...
Well, I have to say I'm a bit old-fashioned, really. I watch Margaret Rutherford and Terry Thomas for my sins. There you go.
That's all right. But the Batman film that came out a couple of years ago, they have this kind of penultimate event. Excuse me.
Bless you.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
And it takes place in Madison Square Garden, this domed event, domed location, which is literally 50 yards away from the New Yorker Hotel where Tesla was. And Tesla is intrinsic with the whole thing of time travel if you look at his work. So you've got Madison Square Garden, but in numbers that comes to 205. They actually changed the name of that. They called it the Gotham Square Garden to make it with the Batman set. But this culmination event happened. Guess what date it happened on? This kind of destruction and recreation all at the same time, and Batman in the water saving the day. It happened on November 5th in the film. So why did they choose that? Why did they choose this destruction moment and then the calm the next day? But it happened on November 5th, and November 5th is the day that I've always been talking about. But Madison Square Garden is 205 in numbers, which is July 17th, and it's the only emoji that I have on my phone because I'm an iPhone user.
Yes.
I believe there's another date, I think it's February something, on the Android ones, which I'll need to look at, but I don't see it all the time because I'm not on. You could probably put it up. Yeah, what is it?
Well,
is it
I'm just 26, but it doesn't give you any more than that.
26th of February, is it?
I don't know. It's just got a calendar date. Well, on the calendar, I don't know whether it would be Google. That's mine's a Samsung old. It's a very old phone.
If you go into say like WhatsApp, and then you were to send an emoji, it's
you
that.
See, if you did Google one, it would be the 31st, but it doesn't give you a month. Go into WhatsApp. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you sent me the date, so that when there's a couple of emojis of a calendar, and there's one with a date, and then it's like peeling back the date on the calendar. In an iPhone, it's July 17th.
Right.
But anyway, so there's all these pointers. What was your first question in regards to it? Other dates? Was it other dates we were talking about?
Yeah, just other dates that we need to sort of think about.
Yeah. So I feel, but also, there's many that kind of pop up, and then you look back and you work out the numbers, and it's like, oh, that was a correlation as well. But I do think one is, I think November 5th is the most obvious because in so many ways it correlates with so many things, but everybody knows that date.
Yes.
And everyone's going to hear that date drummed into their head for the next 8 months.
And do you
You
think
know?
one of that is because of the election that they might call it then?
So something I think some I don't know how, but something is coming where everything is. I think there's going to be a revealing of the truth, but also a collapsing of the old guard. And the reason they've chosen that. So this is another one. So again, a couple of years ago, I haven't actually seen the film, but some of the audience would have either seen it or at least been aware of it. There was another film that came out again a couple of years ago called The 355.
The 355.
Yeah,
Right.
the title of the film was the 355.
Yeah.
And there was a bit in the community, everyone's like, oh, something's coming, 355. Anyway, if you do the phrase, the 5th of November, remember the 5th of November, it comes to 355.
Yes.
It also comes to Westminster Parliament Square, 355. And it's like, what an odd number for them to choose when they could have picked any between 1 and 355. They choose 355, or they one between 1 and 400, but they choose 355. It's like, what does 355 correlate to? It comes to remember the 5th of November. It comes to Westminster Parliament Square, 355. It's like, historically, there's been something amazing about that date, and we've been told to remember it. It comes a week before the Remembrance Day. And the QPO says a week to remember. What better time to have a week to remember than remember the 5th of November and remember Remembrance Day? So why did they pick that? That's the question. It's like, why did they pick that? And one of the correlations is remember the 5th of November. So there's these, they're put out. These codes are put out. They're put out into the mainstream. And whether people decipher them or not is up to them. But they're always there. And I guess I have a gravitas of a natural ability, but a gift is a gift. The number found me. I didn't even know what the name Gematria was until about 2 or 3 months into it.
Let me ask you
numerology.
Let me ask you a completely random number then that you've reminded me of that is completely random. Talking of things, 633.
633. Okay, that's quite a big one. What's that in relation to?
Well, when you were talking about the what would you say, 355? I think it just reminded me of the 633 Squadron, which is an old film.
Ah, okay.
Which is an old war film. I don't know why it reminded me of that. I suppose just the sequence of numbers, 633. And then I just suddenly thought, I wonder if there's a phrase that comes to mind that, I don't know why they called it that. They wanted, as I understand it, 633 did not exist. It's not a real squadron number, but 601 squadron would have been an RAF squadron.
And it was called the 633, the name of the film.
The film is, it's either the 633 Squadron or I'll look it up. Hold on, let's have a look. Okay. Just to get the actual, 633 Squadron is the name of the film, 1964. Okay.
Interesting. Well, immediately one comes up with that. So President Trump has spoken, he's been asked about currencies, and you've probably heard about this, but there's a whole thing in the community, people talking about currency revaluation, meaning currencies that have been weakened through any number of nefarious means will be on a parity with other currencies. So there'll be a level playing field, which sounds like a good idea, actually. President Trump was asked about that way before 2020. A woman in China asked him in a press conference, and he said, well, I've been talking about this for a long, long time. And he said, it will happen sooner than people will think. But he said, there will come a time where we're on a level playing field. A level playing field. Now, in the numbers, a level playing field comes to 176, which comes to Back to the Future, comes to November the 5th. This number, which I've never heard of before in terms of this film, you've just given me 633, comes to 355 plus 278. 278 comes to the currency revaluation. So that's the first thing that popped out to me. So it's saying, remember, the 5th of November, the currency revaluation. So let's wait and see. But that's what I would give in regards to that.
Oh,
I've never looked at it before, but that's what came to me immediately. So, yeah.
Fantastic. Oh, it's just I was just trying to remember what the plot of the 633 Squadron was, whether they've got to bomb something and whether, money was suddenly involved. And if it was a film that was about money being bombed, it would have been interesting. So you mentioned just now that the old system is going to collapse. What do you think is going to happen then? Out with the old and in with something new?
I do. I feel that, I mean, there's this maneuvering with BRICS. I don't really, a lot of the kind of political movements that people, I don't really study them much. I'm aware of certain things, but I have my kind of lane that I'm in, but I try and gather anything that feels important for me to go down the rabbit hole and study, I'll do that. But I mean, you've got BRICS, you've got these other things that are moving around with Iraq. Apparently that's going to get into a position where it's free and goes gold back. So there's all these pieces.
What's the numbers on Iraq?
Iraq, let me check. It's a good one. I think it's 44. Hang on. 45. 45, which is the 45th president, which is spade. And a spade is the highest deck in the cards. It's the highest suit in the deck of cards. It's connected. So the ace of spades, that's the other one. So this is a good question, actually, Richard. So yeah, Iraq is 45. But if you look up the definition of the significance of the spade, what's that?
It's all right, it just flicked.
Are you okay? Are you there?
Yeah, we're back.
Hang on. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, still hear you.
Okay, we'll carry on.
And see you.
You can see me, can you?
Yeah, it's hear you and see you.
Okay.
It's just a little flash.
Okay, excellent. We'll just carry on then. So, yeah, the most spiritual deck in the cards is the spade, and spade is 45 in numbers. President Trump's the 45th president. 45 is also effect, like something that will affect things. But they also say that the spade deck it's connected with wealth, with resurrection, with spiritual change and spiritual growth. And even the Space Force flag, the logo, because President Trump talked about that. He talked about having all the cards and the ace of spades. And so the Space Force logo, when he did the flag ceremony, is like that. It's an arrow. So it's the one that's, out of all the ones in the deck, the spade is like an arrowhead. It's the tip of the spear,
Yeah.
And it's very similar to the one in Star Trek, Their arrow logo. It's almost identical. It's like, what on earth has President Trump got Space Force people around him? And it looks like Star Trek. And it's like, well, work that one out. But the ace of spades in numbers comes to 127. 127 comes to our good old favorite. It comes to November 5th. November 5th is the ace of spades.
All right.
So it's all there, Richard. It's all there. What was the first question in regards to that?
We were talking about what's the old system going and the new system coming up.
So I think it's going to be kind of like a flyaway Paul, come back Paul. Something's going to happen. Something's coming.
Something really radical.
I think it's radical. I mean, 2020 was radical. Yeah. Everybody was aware of that. I think it's going to be something 10 times more spectacular than that. So it's a line in the sand where people can be like united. Because right now, there's 1,001 different Dalmatians of thought, isn't there? I know it's 101, but let's go to 1,001. Yeah. It's 2,001, Space Odyssey. Everyone's got their own thoughts on everything. And that's okay to some extent. But also, if you're a collective group of humanity and you want to move forward together, there does have to be some kind of understanding truths of revelation. In my understanding, in my opinion on it, we have to come together and we have to move forward. So you're out with all the trash and you move forward together. If you're of a certain caliber of person, if you're pure in heart, then you can move forward into the new system. And everybody has to be on the same page with that. And then it's like, we know what the rules of the game are. We know what's gone on. Let's go forward. Whereas when everyone's kind of going off on their own things, it's not really a collective, and and you need individuality and individualism, sure, but you also right now it's a bit of a confusing potpourri of all kinds of things. So I think it has to become a moment of clarity, a moment of unification, where everybody goes. Everyone knows, okay, that's what that was. That's what this is. Okay, off we go, you know.
I know this is going to be fanciful, but are you sort of saying on a par with, and I say this is going to be fanciful, but if a giant face with a beard, a benevolent looking face, came out of the sky and said, "Hi, I am actually God," and everyone went, "Oh, right. That's the answer," and then everyone would just move forward because it was, obvious.
I think so. That's a nice analogy. Whatever that is, I think that we have to have that moment. And I think once we have that moment, we'll probably have a few moments beyond that. But I think there has to be a unifying moment of, oh yeah, that's what it is. Okay, great. Now we know.
And it could be the media. It could be the media just pumping out a truth, as it were.
They're going to have to. I mean, because the thing is, people, me and you less so, but we still get it. But the majority of the world's population believe the media. The media is the third person in the room, and they believe that.
Yes.
And it's very effective. They actually gave it, a 10-week warning on, the New Year's Eve in 2019 about this thing out in China. And then within 10 weeks, with a nice kind of, I say nice, but with a deliberate 2-week window of get ready, this is going to happen. And we all remember that. So they did that through the media. And then a concerted effort, so they can do the reverse of that and remedy all the nonsense that's gone on. And there's all these, there's all these incomplete narrative loops all over the place, and somehow, and this is part of the excitement of it, they're gonna weave it all together, and people are going to be able to understand what the heck's gone on.
And in a way, I mean, the media for the vast majority of people is God.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a horrible thing to think. But the media has weaved its way into that ultimate position that says, go to a certain location, go to the man in the white coat and allow him to inject something into you. And people have gone, yes, of course we will. Yes, of course we will. Oh, master. And but if the media was pumping out, actually, suddenly it was all truths, and people were going, oh, okay, it must be true now because the BBC are telling us.
Of course.
And we'd all be going, we've tried to tell you months ago.
Exactly. That's it. People love.
But it wouldn't matter. It wouldn't matter. If they were telling it, it would be like, hallelujah.
Exactly. They do. People love familiarity. They love authority. Most people love authority. It's like, and they love to be led. And the beauty of humans is they're magical creatures. So magician is 57 in numbers. Human is 57 in numbers. But also with that, you've hit the nail on the head. If you're the one implanting the idea, the information, whether it's correct or not, in the human's consciousness, they're going to create that. And so what is the biggest one that tells everybody? It is the media. I've been saying it for years. It's like as soon as they flip the media, which they can do, when they decide to do that, that's when it will all change. And then everybody will be like, well, I know it's true because I heard it. Where did you hear it? I heard it everywhere. Everybody knew what happened in 2020. It wasn't just a few people doing podcasts saying, get ready for this. Oh, yeah, whatever. It was everywhere. It was an onslaught. They couldn't escape it. And everybody, 99.9% of the population got in line and did exactly what they were told to do. The same thing in a positive way, I believe, is coming. And that will be the time when there's a line in the sand and everybody go, well, you remember that? You remember the events of 2020? Yeah, I do. They pale in comparison to the events of 2024. And that's what's coming. And I don't know exactly how, but I have a feeling of a few things, and it's like something's coming that will, I believe, remedy all the nonsense that's gone on for the last 4 years prior to that.
It's so interesting you say that, because in my gut, I feel that the Parliament and that whole system, the whole two-party system is going. And
it is.
And when I'm doing my talks in front of people and they're saying, do you think we should vote and all of this? And I'm thinking, well, what are you going to vote for? It won't be here. The old system is not. And I hear myself saying this, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm being incredibly radical here, Richard.
Radical Richard.
Radical Richard. That probably adds up to something.
And it probably does.
I wouldn't. I would not have been thinking this, but somehow I just, and people say, "Oh, are you really serious about it?" And I say, believe me, it won't be here. It's going to disappear. And I have no reason to be able to, I've got nothing, no proof, no evidence, nothing other than in my heart.
Yes.
I just don't think it's going to be here.
Exactly. And that's the beauty of this, Richard. So this Great Awakening, when people are receptive to it, their heart's telling them intrinsically the truth. And that's far better than concocted fake news evidence. I don't listen. I get bored of politics. I know it's going on, but that's all going to come down. When you boil it down, why would you want to give permission and even crave permission from an outside force to tell you what the hell you can and can't do in your life? Bugger off. Bugger off. Oh, but I voted for it. No, you didn't. They told us years ago that elections were bust when they, the whole thing with George Bush and what was his name? Was it? I can't remember Al Gore. Back in Florida, they told you back then. I remember they told us. I never voted for anything since. I mean, I did vote in Brexit because I was like, I had my own reasons for that, and then I realised that was incorrect. But prior to that, I wasn't bothered with elections. I was like, this is all a sham. And I think this is what another piece to the puzzle is. All of that's going to disappear. Why on earth would you require that? Please, someone I don't know, please tell me what to do. Back off. I've always been anti that, but it's like people crave it, but they're going to be shown, and they're being shown now how nonsensical that is. And why on earth would you request that in your life? The answer is no, and it's all going to go, which is amazing. It's all going to go. The whole sham, the whole house of cards, the whole evaporation of illusion is all going to go in every single area of life, and that's the exciting thing.
So, look, how old are you, Tom?
48, which comes to Tom actually in numbers. The Tom is 48 in numbers, so I'm right here. I started off when I was 45, which is spade, which is the ace of spades, but 48 now.
What's Richard then in numbers?
61, miracle.
61. Right. Well, I'm 60 this year. That's a shame I couldn't have been 61 then. Maybe next year is a special year.
Well, you've still got it. You've got 61 plus 60, which is 121, which is Golden Jubilee, which is Revelation. Well, Second Coming, 121.
Thank you very much. You've saved me.
There you go.
Well, what I was going to say, what just dawned on me then as we were talking about the whole thing coming down, is that if you've been around a bit like you and I have, nearly 50 years, nearly half a century, me just tipped over the other side of it. We've seen a lot.
We look a lot younger though, Richard, don't we? Really?
We do. We try.
I would say you're this side of 50. I'm back.
You're that side of 30, of course.
Yeah, exactly.
But what I was to say, because we've been around a lot, we've seen lots of elections. We know how the system. To us, a new system. And this coming tumbling down will be such a relief to us because we have lived through this tyranny, not necessarily knowing it was a tyranny or it was a dark thing. Whereas many younger people, it will happen and it will all, because they're like, say, in their 20s, they've barely lived, and it will be like, oh, okay.
Okay. Yeah, on to the next one. Okay.
Which I wonder is why the people who are very much aware of this seem to be the older generation. People,
Yeah,
because it means more to them that this change, not just for us, but for our children, because we know what we've been through.
Yes, they are. And also as well on the other, because I've noticed that, like the demographics of our audience are usually older, and so they've seen it. But also refreshingly, so I had my nieces and nephews down in the summer, and we were out on the beach and out in the sea, and we were having a great chat about all kinds of stuff, and they're like, they loved all the Tom Number stuff. It was brilliant, whereas bless them, my siblings, some are okay, some are kind of just don't really want, they're like, strange, but he's very successful. This is, so they kind of just leave it, but they know it's they're aware.
Can they?
Yeah, but my nieces and nephews were loving it, and we were talking about all kinds of stuff, and so thankfully, which was reassuring, is like the real young ones, the star seeds.
Yes,
they're just like, yeah, of course, this is brilliant. They get it. We were talking about time travel. They were bringing it up. They're like, oh, so the numbers mean this. Oh, super soldiers. Oh, and it was like a big video game for them. So a lot of them probably will be like, well, of course we go onto this because this is what it is, you know.
Absolutely.
But the ones that have been in the trenches for, you know, a few decades are sick to the back teeth of it and like, come on, bring on the new system, you know.
Yeah.
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 And of course, some of them are so stuck in that mud that they cannot conceive.
Well, that's the other thing. Yeah.
You know, the other half.
They're stuck in it. They're caked in it. But thankfully, bit by bit, others do wake over. I think there's a certain critical mass of people
Yes.
like you and me and our audiences that were required to kind of, I don't know, maybe like a buffer. When the flip happens, they'll be like, at least someone somewhere will know someone that knew this was coming.
Well, I was saying this the other day that I think that we are the signposts.
Yeah.
Because when people start going, oh crikey, hang on, everything's changed. What do we do? Because for the last few years, people like us have been thinking about this.
Yeah.
We've gone, well, you know, these guys are growing stuff. Do you want to do that? Or these guys are finding new money, or whatever it is. Because we will be the signposts and the guides for these people, so that, especially for the young who are like going, oh, you mean I don't have to go to school then and learn all this crap and be sexualized? No, you don't have to do that. You can just be part of the community and be a wonderful person.
Exactly. Well, that was one of the benefits of 2020. It showed that most people's jobs aren't necessary.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
Most people's jobs aren't, you know, the whole office pushers. That's not really necessary. I felt that intrinsically for a long time, but that proved it. And then bless them, you know, the people that were running the actual physical services, like the shop workers and all the rest of it, they were required and they did a great job and they were still kept on. But most 8% of the people's business, you know, a lot of just the pushing a paper and sitting in a box with the computer and being told what to do and what time you go to break and all the rest
Sitting
of it.
in artificial light all day long.
Yeah, exactly. That's not required. That isn't required. And then you talked about growing stuff. So I was going to mention this earlier, but I know you're aware of it, but I'll just mention it quickly. So I've got these things. I know you've got them, but you've got the shun guide. So that helps with your plants. So you've got your sleeping pod, you've got your charging plate, and the beauty of it. So shun guide and organite, what these products are. I think we've just got a little link below, but
I've got a link in the description.
The numbers. This is the beauty of this, Richard. So shungite is 103. Organite is 103, which is the composite of all these beautiful things. But you add those together, that's 206, which comes to quantum physics. And if you drop the 0, so it's just 2 and 6, 26. Z is the 26th letter of I was going to say the game, the 26th letter of the alphabet. But the word 26 comes to God, and you talked about God revealing in whatever form.
Yes.
At the end of the day, and so it's like it is. It's about us. It's about God. It's about this thing that we're in. Whatever this thing in life is, it's there, and it's taking advantage of, or remembering, or being aware of the things that will bless us. You know, so whether it's growing our own crops. Lalani did a beautiful little post on this just yesterday. So she's been growing her vegetables. Oh, where you gone, Richard?
Show them again. No, it's all right. I'm here. I'm just showing
you. Oh, you're going to show yours, yeah.
Yeah, no, there we are. Look, it's interesting. You've got that yellow one. We put our filtered water on it to structure the water.
That's it. That's what I do. Yeah, that's what I do. And I've got another one which is identical. It's a black one, and that goes in the fridge, and that just keeps my vegetables. And I had blueberries in there for 7 weeks, and they didn't go through one of these things.
Sure, it wasn't that they were sprayed with a peel from Bill Gates. No, I'm joking.
Whenever I've brought blueberries in the past, even if they're in the fridge, they usually.
Yeah. I was joking at the. I was just joking at the horrible synthetic crap that you bung in somewhere and 6 years come back and it's still, you know, there's nothing in it. It's like plastic food.
Yeah, no, but these actually, this is the weird thing. They actually tasted and looked and felt better than they did when I actually bought them. Ironically,
yes.
I was like, so it actually enhanced them and kind of. They were just better. I was like, that's not quite what I bought, but they're actually better.
No, that's amazing. We use the sleep pods at night time to get rid of the EMF.
Yeah.
Mind you, we do help by turning off the electricity, but there is a 5G thing, and the neighbours have not 5G, it's a 4G thing, but the neighbours also have that, and they don't turn their power off or anything because they don't know.
Well, you can. So one of the things I've done, so it's good to turn it off. Like I turn my phones off at night and everything. But so this is one of the phone shield protectors. and you can just plant this on the back of one of your phones. You've got it.
I've got it on.
So what I have is I've got one of these on the back of my router. So in the center of the house is the router. So I've actually got one of these on the router, so that helps reduce the potency of that. And you got your. Oh, there you go. You got your.
This is. I put my mugs of tea on here when I'm in the studio.
Yeah, the tile. Yeah.
On the tile, yeah, which is again very good.
Yeah, the tile was great, and you got your pyramid as well.
Pyramid is downstairs in front of my computer.
And it's I mean, that's the thing, and that's the joy of the numbers. It's like, okay, let's have a look at it. This is something that's useful. Shungite 103, Orgonite 103, add them together, which is what these beautiful products are from Fix the World Project, which, like you said, the links are below. You can get your own, but it comes to quantum physics 206. I mean, it's like, all these wonderful things that are kind of becoming more and more prominent now, and probably some of them have been around for a long time, but we're becoming more aware of it. We're seeking them now because we want to incrementally improve our lives, and also quantumly. We want to jump forward in our progression, and these things are just beneficial, and they last forever. They're always there. It's like you don't have to charge it. They're there. It's like the power is within itself.
Yes,
and it's there, and it does its job 24 hours a day.
I think as we reach that point, November the 5th, we're going to see a lot more of the Tesla stuff.
Yes.
And we're going to see a lot more of these radical things that we now think is amazing, which of course, a lot of this was discovered 100 years ago and kept quiet, occulted, hidden from us. But so much is, oh, hello, I think I've lost him. So much as, let me come back to this. Have I lost you? I think he's pressed a button. He's pressed a button and vanished. But it's true. So many of these things are, it'll probably come back in a minute. So many of these things have been hidden. And I think there is going to be not only a big revelation about what has happened to us in the recent times with the nefarious perpetrators who've come up with their weird solutions, but I also think that there's going to be a huge revelation to some of this technology, which we should have known about. And I can't remember who it was. There was somebody who said that we are 100 years behind where we ought to be because of what has happened to us. I keep looking over here because my little monitor here might have Tom come back in a second. I don't know what's happened to him. Perhaps his laptop has just died or something. And we're almost at the end of the show anyway, but I'll just keep gabbling on just in case he's going to come back. We were at 1 hour and 2 minutes in already, but I just want to give him the benefit of coming back to say thank you very much. But if he doesn't come back, that was Tom Numbers, who just suddenly disappeared in a flurry of numbers there. Do check him out. He has got his own podcast. I'll put the link in the description. As I say, the link for the Shungite stuff is in the description anyway, but I'll bring it up to the top. I wanted to ask Tom about his book, so we may have to get him back on the show at another time. So I don't think he's going to come back. The Zoom link is still open, but I think he has vanished. But never mind. What a shame. But there we are. I will have more interesting interviewees, of course, on the show, and more monologues for you to enjoy. I'm just lingering here in case he comes back, but I don't want to keep you hanging on too long. But anyway, there it is. Thank you so much for watching. I'll put the links in the description. Do check out Tom's stuff. Oh, hang on. Here he is, just before we go. Look at that. He's coming. He's back. There we are. Look, he is back. And he's just sorting out the connections to the audio there. But he'll be here in a second. He's just pressing all the relevant buttons. Are you there? He says he can't hear me, but he's genuinely here. Look, here he is. He's struggling. Poor fella. There he goes.
Sorry about that.
No, that's all right.
We lost power on the...
Lost power on the thing. I kept gabbling. We've gone over the time a bit, but I wanted two things I wanted to ask you about, and I have sort of hinted at it. One, that you were writing a book, and the other details for your podcast, of course. So do tell us about your book first.
Yeah, thanks, Richard. So it's on Substack, so people can join for free, and they can just enter their email, and they can get segments of the chapters. If they want to become a I guess, a founding contributor, then they can do that. They can join at the higher level, and they'll get their name actually in the acknowledgements of people that supported the book. So the book is basically my origin story and my journey through the numbers. So it's titled "In the Beginning Was the Word, and then came the numbers." And so
very good.
that's that's the title of it. And so the first chapter went out this week, which is the origin. So it basically starts from when I was born, and
So you're releasing it chapter by chapter.
Yeah, releasing it by chapter, and then we'll do, the actual physical copy of it. But Substack it's a, you might, because you're cerebral, right? You might, I don't know if you do Substack yet, but it might be something for you.
I haven't done it. I do. People do send me stuff to look at on there, but it's so for me though, I like physical things, so I'd be very interested in purchasing a physical version once you've got it all out and done.
So it's a lovely way, because it gets, you can release it. Obviously, you've got time. You can tweak a couple of things, but it kind of builds a momentum with your audience. People get a feel for it, but then you get the chance to physically make it. So the title is, well, it's well crafted. In the beginning was the Word, and then came the numbers. So the numbers for the two words, the word, comes to 93 Bushnell. So it's in the beginning, Bushnell, and then came the numbers. But in the beginning was the Word, and then came the numbers. So that's what it is. And in the Bible, it talks about, in the beginning was the Word, and then the fourth book of the Bible was numbers. So I thought, it's a nice kind of
absolutely. And your podcast, you do your videos and things.
Yes.
I'll obviously put all the links in the description. I'll get you to send them to me. But just for the sake of audience listening, because sometimes I don't know why YouTube don't always put the link, or they take the link out. I don't know why they do that. So it's always good to hear it.
Very naughty.
Yeah, I know. Where can they find you?
So I like you. I'm also on YouTube. So my channel is Tom.Welcome.To.Psych.Club. So I've got about 85,000 or so on YouTube. So people can find me there.
PSYCH Psych.Club.
Yes. And I've also got a secondary channel, which I just started up, called Top of Your Game with Top Numbers. So that's a newer channel. But they're both up there. I'll send you the links. And I also have my locals community, where I do my News with Tom Numbers show. So what I do is I identify quite often the front pages of a newspaper, the tabloid newspapers, and like the Daily Star or the Sun, and there'll be quite often reference points and codes which are very obvious. So I'll do a show on that. So that's in my locals community, so people can join that as well. And it's free to join the community. It's subscription videos if people want to do that as well. But that you get on the email list, you're part of the community. You can put your own posts and share information up there as well. And I'm on Twitter, Truth Social, LinkedIn, Telegram, the usual, but my main ones are YouTube, locals, and now Substack for the book. So people want to read the first chapter of the book and subsequent ones, and they can join there. So
it's always fascinating. It's a completely different world for me. It's fascinating, but what's really interesting is that we have, just on the sort of, as I said before, the gut reaction to certain things. I may not fully grasp all the numbers and the synchronicity, but the ethos that you have and that gut reaction to something happening later on this year, I just share so intrinsically, but I can't put my finger on why. I have no idea that the way I believe that what is going to happen, but it matches what you've been saying. So it's going to be interesting to see how it all maps out.
It sure is, Richard, and that's it. It's your heart. It's if people are pure in heart, and they feel it.
What does heart come to?
Heart is 52, and so 52 is heart. It's earth. So earth is beating, a living organism.
Yes,
and we all inhabit it. And the pure is 93. Which is also the Word, which is in my book, and Bushnell 93, Kingship, Nazareth 93, Hungarian 93, Flotus 93.
It's amazing how these words have similar, they're all kind of, it's almost like the words are a vibration and they're all vibrating on the same thing.
That's exactly what it is. They are. Everything in this world is in this 3D matrix is created through vibration. You know that. You've seen this upwards online, and you vibrate at a certain frequency, and it changes the matter. It vibrates. The word vibrate is 77. The words Christ is 77. The words matter is 77. And I guess words do matter because their frequency, their vibrations, they create things. And so it is important how we use our words. Our words are swords, and you can
Yes.
either defend and shield and protect, or you can pierce and injure. So it's like our words are important, even in jest, they're important. And so,
Yes.
but our words, as my friend Michael Gambon, the great Dumbledore, said, he passed recently, but he was a great person I got to do with shows with and got to know.
I saw that. I saw your interview with him.
Yeah,
you sent it to me. Yeah.
And they were showing the Harry Potter films in the last couple of weeks, and I think it's in the last one, he talks about the power of words, and I'm going to kind of hash it really, but he basically says he believed that words are probably the most magical things that we've got. They're the ability to create and fashion our reality. And even the word spelling, it's like, what do? You spell words. It's like, okay, so we should use words as a gift and be mindful of them. And even just the whole thing of writing the book, it's like, words are really powerful. It's like, we speak it verbally, or we say it, or we write it down. But they convey a certain frequency.
And when you say I read a book somebody sent me at the middle of last year, and he was talking about, and I'm trying to sort of contain this now, but he was saying, in the beginning there was people spoke before they wrote. And so the sound of a word, the word is sound first and written second. Yeah. And when you think of it like that, and of course sound is an obvious vibration.
Yes. It is.
And you're forming that sound in the way that you vocalize those words. And I just thought, and so that was what to him was so important about storytelling, oral storytelling in the round. It wasn't so much the story. You could change the story in bits and bits, but it was the telling of the story, because the passion, the emotion, and all of that is wrapped up. Whereas when it's printed on a page, the cat sat on the mat is just a statement, but the cat sat on the, you can give emphasis and how you say it, or there was a knock at the door. All of that, it just lends itself. So
people feel it. It resonates, doesn't it? It resonates in the heart. And you made a brilliant point, Richard. So the word sound, SOUND, when you spell it out and add it up in numbers, it comes to 73. And guess what the word number comes to? It also comes to 73.
73.
So sound and number are synonymous with each other. And you might even remember this TV show back in the day, Number 73.
Yes.
The kids' TV show, Number 73. So they know, they know.
I think it was number 73 done at Manchester in Maidstone.
That's it. It was, yeah. It was with, what's her name, Torsveg, the girl that does, or the lady that does the QI quite often.
I was in it. I was
in
that, as an extra all those years ago. They did this little skit each week with Roger Sloman, and it was like a Crossroads Motel type comedy.
Yeah.
And they did this thing, and I was an extra in that, and we used to go up to Maidstone, and it was hilarious because they were taking the piss out of television in this little skit, and one of the things was they wanted the extras to take the piss out of extras effect. So you'd walk across the screen being just a hotel guest, and you'd walk back, and then you'd walk back again, you'd walk back. So it was so bleeding obvious that they were using it. It was quite fun. And I got chatting to the director, who was hilarious. And I do remember at one point, because I used to muck about a bit, and and I remember coming into, and I was an extra, so you're the lowest of the low, and all the other stars are there doing their thing. And over the tannoy, just on this one particular morning, it said, warning, Richard Vobes has just come onto the studio set. And I was like going, oh, blimey, I've been picked out. It was very funny. So you've just reminded, 73. Blimey, number 73, there we are.
Number 73, yeah. So number is 73. That's why they, I would propose that they knew. So they called it that. And even if you do number and then 73, that's 146, the trumpet, the universe. They're telling us. the universe is 146, which is number,
Yes.
which is 73, and then they've got 73 on top. You add them together, so number.
And when you say they, do you mean who's they are telling
I
you?
say they, I guess collectively, whoever's done it, So whoever designed that name or gave that name, I suspect they probably knew the significance. It's like, oh, you've got the word number in your title, and then you call it 73. Oh, the word number equals 73 in numbers, and then you've got 73. So I think whoever they were designed that might have known. Or they got given it from somewhere and they put it there.
And they're just inspirational, going 73 works where 74 just doesn't do it.
Yeah. I mean, 74 is Gematria, so that's another form of the numbers. But number 73 is identical. And then you add them together and it's 146, which
and
is...
some things just work, some things just work,
they do.
Artistically.
They just work. And you happen to be there. And I happen to bring it up. But it's like, I didn't know that.
I didn't know you were going to bring it up.
That's the beauty. So that's what happens when you get fluid with the numbers. It's a language. It's a form of communication and of correlation and a connection. And it can weave. I mean, I'm not even a great mathematician, really. I'm not. I mean, I can. I have to climb. I can feel the cogs going around. But what I am good at is receiving impulses and thoughts and inspiration and synchronicities, and then being able to work them out very quickly and just piecing them together. And I was like, oh, it's that. And I can paint, So I've always been able to I've always been interested in looking around corners. It's like a spiritual periscope, peering around corners, having a look. And but the numbers are a beautiful thread that you can correlate it on,
Yeah.
But
Tom,
the word comes first before the numbers, So
it's been a brilliant conversation. I've got to end it now, but thank you so much. And I think you're inviting me onto your show as well.
You're coming on next week. So we'll get you over on mine. So boomerang background. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. It's been a fascinating conversation, as it was the last time.
Yeah, so it's always fun.
I hope the audience got something out of that as well. I'll be back with more monologues and more wonderful guests, of course. But in the meantime, from Tom and I, thank you so much for watching. Till next time, goodbye.